All right, let's talk about something that's absolutely fundamental to building great Lightning Web components, making them talk to each other. Specifically, we're diving into parent-to-child communication. You've got to get this down if you want to build apps that are modular, powerful, and, actually work well.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll cover why this is even a thing we need to worry about. Then, we'll introduce the star of the show, the @API decorator. From there, we'll get practical and look at how a parent can send its child some data, and even how it can tell it what to do. And finally, we'll wrap up with a few key rules to keep your code clean and manageable.
So, first things first, why do we even need components to communicate? Well, it's all about building an application that feels connected and whole, not like a bunch of separate parts just thrown on a page.
I mean, think about it. Most of the time, you've got several components working together. If they can't share information or tell each other when things happen, you just have these isolated islands of functionality. The whole point here is to solve that problem, to keep everything in sync so the user has a smooth, seamless experience.
Let's make this real with a classic Salesforce example. Imagine you have a parent component and its job is to show a list of account names. Simple enough. But when a user clicks on one of those accounts, a different component, a child component, needs to pop up and show the details for that specific account. The parent has to have a way to tap the child on the shoulder and say, hey, show the info for Acme Corp now. That right there, that's parent-to-child communication in a nutshell.
So how do we pull this off in LWC? We don't just hack it together. There's an official built-in tool for this exact job. So let's meet the main character of our story today, the @API decorator. The easiest way to think about the @API decorator is that it's like a permission slip. When you stick it on a property or a function inside a child component, you're essentially raising a flag and saying, hey, this is public. Any parent component that uses me is allowed to see and interact with this. It's the official entry point.
Okay, let's get our hands dirty with the most common scenario you're going to encounter. A parent needing to pass some data down to its child. This is the bedrock of building reusable, data-driven components.
And you know what? It's a really simple two-step dance. First, the child has to declare what it's willing to receive from the outside world. Then, the parent simply gives it that information. Let's see exactly what that looks like in the code.
So check this out. Inside the child component's JavaScript file, you import API from the LWC library. Then, you just put the @API decorator right above the property you want to expose. Here, it's our message property. That's literally it. This property is now a public doorway ready for data.
Now, over in the parent's HTML template, we drop in our child component just like any other HTML tag. And here's the magic. To pass the data, we create an attribute whose name matches the public property in the child. LWC automatically connects the dots, mapping this message attribute directly to the child's @API message property. It's so clean and easy to read.
But let's be honest, passing static text is kind of boring. This is where the real power kicks in. We can make this whole process dynamic by binding that attribute to a property that lives in the parent's own JavaScript.
For instance, maybe the parent has an input field. When the user types in it, a handle change function gets called. That function updates a property on the parent. And because of LWC's incredible reactivity system, the moment that parent property changes, the new value is automatically pushed right down into the child. You don't have to write any extra code to make that happen. It just works.
Okay, passing data? Check. We've got that down. Now let's level up. What if the parent needs to tell the child to do something? Not just give it data, but trigger an action, like, hey, reset your form, or go refresh your data now. For that, we can expose entire methods.
And the best part is, the way you do it is going to feel super familiar. It's the exact same approach as with properties. You just take that @API decorator and slap it right on a method in the child component. Here, we've created a public reset message method that a parent can now call whenever it wants.
So how does the parent actually trigger it? Well, from the parent's JavaScript, it first needs to grab a reference to the child component instance. You can do that easily with this .template.querySelector. Once you have that reference, you can just call its public methods directly, like resetMessage, as if it were any old JavaScript function.
And honestly, this is a total game changer. It lets you build these really rich, interactive experiences. Think about a dashboard with a master reset all filters button up top. That one button in the parent component could tell 5 different child components to clear their own filter settings. This is the pattern that makes all that possible.
Now you know the saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
To stop our applications from turning into a tangled mess of spaghetti code, we need to follow a few simple rules for this communication pattern.
The most important thing here is to keep the data flowing in one clear direction, from parent down to child. Only expose what you absolutely have to. Let the parent be the owner of the data. And whatever you do, avoid creating weird loops where the parent calls the child, which then tries to call the parent back. That's a recipe for chaos.
All right, let's do a quick recap. We saw how to use the @API decorator on properties to pass data down. We saw how to make that data dynamic through binding. And we saw how to use @API on methods to let a parent trigger actions in its child. Pretty cool, right?
So, we've totally nailed how the parent can talk down to the child. It's like the parent has a megaphone. But that brings up a really obvious next question, doesn't it? What happens when the child needs to send a message back up? How does it tell its parent that something important just happened? Well, that, my friends, is a topic for our next explainer.